Welcome to this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market, where I take a look at the luxury market, the Manhattan market, and the Brooklyn market. I do it because I want you to be informed. It never hurts when you're a consumer to be informed. Welcome to this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market, and happy 2023. This is my first State of the Market report for 2023, and we're going to start the year off by taking a look back at what happened in 2022. We're going to be looking at what happened in the luxury market in 2022, and I'm also going to be bringing you what happened in the Manhattan and Brooklyn market. So we're going to start, as we always do, with the luxury market. And before I get started with that, I want to first thank the Olshan Report for their amazing and detailed reporting on the Manhattan luxury market. I am so appreciative of the work that they do, because the data that they compile each week helps me to help you. Okay, let's get started. 2022 was a solid year for the luxury market, with 1,304 contracts signed at $4 million and above, totaling over $10 billion in sales. The first half of the year was the busiest, with 836 contracts signed, and the second half of the year less so, with 468 contracts signed. So while 2022 was not a big year as compared with 2021, which was our rebound year from COVID, it was still a very solid market from a decade perspective, and it is one that placed fifth overall within the last decade. Let's take a look at what happened, let's say, between 2013 and 2022. If we look at the total number of contracts that were signed each year, you'll see that if we compare 2022 with 2021, we're off by about 500 contracts, which is really not terrible. As I said, there were 1,304 contracts signed in 2022, as compared with our very big rebound year, 2021, with 1,877 contracts. If you look back at 2013 and compare it with 2022, you'll see that in 2013, there were 1,372 contracts signed, and in 2022, there were 1,304 contracts. So kind of interesting to go back this far and take a look. If you compare the total volume of 2022 with 2021, you'll see that we had a little over $10 billion in total volume for 2022, whereas in 2021, which was our gangbusters year, we had almost $16 billion. If you look at the average asking price, and this is for all property types across the board, condos, co-ops, condos, and townhouses in the luxury market, properties priced at $4 million and above, you'll see the average asking price for 2022 was $7,980,111, whereas in 2021, prices were a little bit higher on average, $8,461,763. And if we continue to go down and we look at the median price on all properties, those are kind of 2022, 2021 are kind of about the same, a little bit different, both asking a little over $6 million as a median price. And the average discount from original ask to last asking price. Now, this is really an interesting statistic. I think in 2022, there was actually less of a discount, 5%, as compared with 2021, which was 9%. Now, that could be any number of factors. Very likely in 2022, we had a very strong sense, sellers had a very strong sense of where the market was at as we came into 2022, and therefore were pricing perhaps more realistically, more in alignment with the market. If you look at the average days on market, again, this includes new development, which I've said does take a while to sell. It also, in the luxury market, these properties can sometimes take quite a while to sell. Some move quickly, but not so with others. 545 days on the market in 2022 and 566 days in 2021. That's a look at what happened in the Manhattan luxury market for 2022. Now we're going to shift over and take a broader look at what happened in the Manhattan and the Brooklyn markets in 2022. So I'm going to be doing a bit of a combination report for Manhattan and Brooklyn. And just as I uh, wanted to acknowledge the amazing reporting that the Olshan report gives me every week for the luxury market, I also want to mention Urban Digs, which is amazing at reporting on the broader market, the entire Manhattan market, and the entire market in Brooklyn. So, very appreciative of all of this information. Again, it is their hard work on the data that allows me to bring you the very latest news on what's happening in the New York City market. Okay, now we're going to take a look. Let's sort of start with an overview of what we saw in 2022. We saw basically a supply trend that has shown a decline, and that has been a driving force of market leverage. The pending sales contract activity has been sharply down, both in Manhattan and in Brooklyn. We're just starting to get those Q4 numbers on closed prices. So I can start to share with you, and I will a little bit in this report, what we're seeing. It's kind of surprising, actually, because there is more of a mix in here than we would have thought. So, if we look at the Manhattan supply, we are seeing the supply being at about 2018, 2019 levels. The Manhattan market has kind of expanded and contracted. We have absorbed now most of our active properties, and that left us at the end of 22 kind of where we began the year. And as I said, the supply became a real driver of this market leverage this year. Just to be more specific, if you look at where we started the year in 2022, 5,736 properties in the Manhattan market were active. By the end of the year, 6,226. Not a huge difference. Again, we're back to about 2018, 2019 levels in terms of supply. If we shift over and we take a look at Brooklyn, we see the supply in Brooklyn is even tighter than that of Manhattan. If we look at the beginning of the year, we see there were 3,264 properties. By the end of 2022, we were down to 3,032 properties. This is why Brooklyn continued to be a stronger market than Manhattan. We saw that the low inventory, the pressure on the inventory, even as deal volume was declining and there were fewer pending contracts, fewer contracts being signed, we continued to see the market holding pretty firm. We're going to take a closer look at that as well. So I mentioned that the pending sales in Manhattan and in Brooklyn were down sharply from the beginning of the year. If you just look at how the beginning of 2022, the pending sales were 3,989. By the end of 2022, we were down to 2,429 deals. If we take a look at Brooklyn, we see the pending sales in Brooklyn with the sales drop not quite as drastic as Manhattan's, 2,679 in the beginning of the year, down to 1,758 by the end of the year. If we look at the Manhattan resale condo price per square foot, we can see that in the first quarter, we were at about 1,470 something at the beginning of the year. By the end of the year, and for last year, we were at 1,452. So a lot of people think or thought that the price action was going to be more dramatically impacted because we saw things really slow down in the fall. Our deal volume was down. A lot of people wondered if that also meant that the prices were also falling, but we can see, in fact, in Manhattan, they were not. And now, if we look at Brooklyn, we can see that there is a kind of a steadiness there. Also, in fact, if you look at the beginning of Q1 last year, 2022, the condo price per square foot for resale was 1,010. And by the end of the year, it was a little bit over 1,100. So we are really seeing that price action for Manhattan and Brooklyn was not as impacted as some feared that it would be. The negotiability in Manhattan, if you're looking at this chart, looks to be about 4%, not as much as a lot of people were predicting. So it's interesting to see that. And, when we take a look at Brooklyn, we see there's even less negotiability, 3.2% comparatively with Manhattan, 4.1%. Neither are significant discounts from the original to the last ask. The negotiability is always impacted by the number of days on the market. If you've been on the market for 30 days or less, you're very likely going to get your asking price. After that, we start to see a decline. So this represents really kind of the averages. So here's our market pulse chart, which I love. So thanks, Urban Digs, for putting these market pulse charts together. You can see that in Manhattan, we went down, 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 and now we're starting to go back up. So yes, it's been quiet. Yes, deal volume is down, but we are no longer in that buyer's market territory. We have shifted back into a neutral market. The biggest factors playing a part in this market pulse look has to do with the rental market being strong. We have a fairly low inventory, and we have seen a lot of properties go off market. Now, what is that going to mean for 2023? Really hard to know for sure, but as we start to get more properties coming into the market in the next, let's say, 6 weeks, we'll start to get an idea of how the rise in inventory and is going to be impacted by contract activity, because we don't know quite yet when the buyers are going to really jump back in with both feet. We're going to take a look at Brooklyn. Brooklyn is honestly the same story. You can see Brooklyn has suffered less. We've had a pretty stable, neutral market in Brooklyn. Why? For the same reasons. We've had very little inventory. We had a decline in the pending sales, but not to the same degree that we've had in Manhattan. And rental prices continue to be high, and people are deciding they'd rather buy than rent because there's no deal to be had in renting right now. We're going to see how 2023 plays out, because right now we had this big adjustment in the fall. We were going gangbusters in 2001. We were going pretty gangbusters in the first half of 2022. Everything slowed down. There were a lot of reasons for that: rising interest rates, stock market being very volatile, and also talks of inflation. So how this will all impact 2023 remains to be seen. I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on it, and I'm certainly going to be bringing you that news as I get it. So I will be back next week with a new look at what's happening in the luxury market, the Manhattan market, and the Brooklyn market. If you have any questions at all, please post them below. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if this kind of content is helpful to you. And also feel free to share these videos with someone you think might benefit from having this information. Okay, I'll be back next week. In the meantime, Take care.